I'm going to play a little videotape because over the past 2 years, I've been on a speaking stint, and it seems as though through my athletic career and through my motivational speaking, I'm being called to speak to a lot of different groups. And when people ask me, what is my life all about, I put together this 6-minute video, and I think this will put it all together for you. So try to stay awake, sit back, relax, but don't fall asleep.
That doesn't look like it's on. There you go. Ben, come take a look at it.
championship belt is just another hill I'll have to take. So take my advice. Duck and cover, oh mysterious one. You see, I'm not just any Sergeant King. I'm the master!
I put that together because so many times when I speak to people, I'm a registered nurse. So right there you can understand where when I walk onto a patient care unit or if I walk into a patient's room, they're going to do just about anything that I ask them to without a question, just because of the way that I look and sometimes because of my presentation. But today what we're going to talk about is my journey. And the reason why I put that together is just to make a point that through today you listen to a lot of different people speak about training techniques, diet, slow, fast, high intensity, all these different training methods. I've done them all, okay? And I just want to say that, you know, I think that Bob has done a great job, and I'd like to give him a round of applause for putting As you can see from the videotape, my life obviously has gone through a lot of different changes. And the journey that I'm going to speak about now is the journey from 1997 to the current, where I'm at this point in time in my life. And some people really thought in August of 97 that I was getting to a point in my powerlifting career where I really reached a pinnacle, which I did. I totaled 1,100 pounds in 3 consecutive competitions and reset all the world powerlifting records in the ADFPA in Canada. But when I came home from that contest, I realized that at that point there was something missing. And a lot of you out there who have either competed or never competed may not understand what I'm talking about. But I had been competing in powerlifting since 1983 and had pretty much conquered everything personally that I felt I needed to conquer. So when I came home from Canada in August of 97, I was pretty beat up. I had been to the national championships in February of that year, totaled over 1,100. I had gone to a championship for the AAU. In May of that year, I totaled 1,100 again. And then I went back into Canada and did a 1085 total, which was, you know, a tremendous feat for me to come back and do that 3 times in 1 year. That was also the year I pulled 455 at Dr. Ken's powerlifting meet in Iron Island on Long Island. So I felt that I needed a break and I needed a change, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And a friend of mine, Michelle DeGennaro, who used to be a pretty decent powerlifter in her day, was also an Olympic lifter at some point in time in her career. And when I came home, I told her that I wanted to give Olympic lifting a try. And when she got up off the floor from laughing, she said, "How could you even consider going into Olympic lifting? You are the slowest lifter I've ever seen in my life. And if you're going to be an Olympic lifter, you have to have speed, you have to have flexibility, and you have to have a little bit more balance and agility than I've seen you." And this was a good friend of mine, so I didn't take it too harshly. But she took me under her wing, and with her and a friend of mine, Frank Caramico, who was also a powerlifting coach at that time, they brought me down to Iron Island Gym and basically started to teach me some of the basic techniques for the Olympic lifting. And what I quickly learned was how inflexible I had become over my 16 years in the competitive powerlifting arena. I thought I was in pretty decent shape. I obviously was very strong. However, I really wasn't focusing on the other aspects of my training, and I wasn't stretching as much as I needed to become a successful Olympic-type lifter. So after going to the gym with them for probably 2 or 3 months, I had taken 2 months off after coming home from Canada and did not step foot in the gym for 2 months solid. I went back to the gym in October of '97 and started working on some of the simple moves and lifts of Olympic lifting, basically working with a broomstick, and that was it. Frank advised me that he had pretty much shown me as much as he was going to show me, and he had told me that I probably should go to this gym in Queens called Lost Battalion Hall, which, if any of you are from the New York area, you know that this gym is like the lifting center for Olympic lifters in the New York tri-state area, or one of them. So I went down and I watched these guys lift a little bit, and coming from a fairly good-sized gym, coming from Iron Island Gym, I was used to having the best equipment, I was used to having the best type of atmosphere, clean, new, a lot of support. And when I walked down into the basement of Lost Battalion Hall, which is like a big city parks building, basically it was a wall about the size of this wall here with 8x8 platforms of rubber, and that's all it was. And on every platform there was a bar, and on every platform there was someone lifting. And there were a lot of bumper plates, and there was a lot of noise. And I felt it very intimidating because I really didn't have a clue why I was even there. And I thought of turning around and going back out the door and saying this was a stupid idea, but I met Artie Drexler. And Artie Drexler is the guy who wrote that book that I have on the back table there, and it took him 10 years to write. Artie Drexler is the last world champion in the press. When the Olympic lifts used to be the clean and jerk snatch in the press, Artie is the guy who holds the 365-pound press record. And then they did away with the lift, so he's very happy. So he'll always have that record. But anyway, Artie is a very, very soft-spoken man. He reminds me very much of Dr. Ken Leisner in that he knows his stuff. And he was very respectful when I came to him and I said, you know, that I'd like to try Olympic weightlifting, and his eyes lit up. And he said, fine. He says, we're having a competition in 2 weeks. Come down. And I said, I'm not going to compete. He said, no, just come down to watch, just so you can get an idea what it's all about. So I did. I went down and I watched. And I bought one of his books and I brought it home. And that night I was leaving for Florida to meet with my family. And when I got back from vacation after the holidays, I started training with him. So in January of '98 is when I really started training with Artie and really learning what I needed to learn about Olympic lifting. And the first thing that I learned was that I had to change a lot of my style, my equipment. Most of my equipment that I had used for my powerlifting days, even to this day now, is up in my closet in a big bag. And I really haven't taken it out except to use it for the competition in February, in this past powerlifting championship in February. But what I quickly learned was that I needed to work on speed, agility, balance, and flexibility. And all of these things, in order to have a bar up and back over your head when you're in a bottom snatch position, to have a bar racked up on your shoulders. The first time that Artie took me into the weight room, he took me into a power rack where I felt very comfortable until he put the bar up against my neck and brought me into the bar and said, okay, now we're going to test your flexibility of your shoulders. And basically this is what happened. That's it. That's as far as my arm would go. So he said, I'm going to bring your elbow up, and when you feel, like it's enough, just tell me when. And he continued to do that for about 15 seconds, and then he would rest, and then he would start and rest. And basically my flexibility went to about here. But now, my elbows come all the way up. When I flip the bar up, it comes up where it's supposed to sit, up on your deltoids. And I've worked a lot on that. It's taken a year, but it's happened. But it was a very scary thing to go from being the strongest and the best to walking into an arena where I pretty much, and to this day, I am still nobody in the Olympic lifting arena. It's a very different, very close-knit group of people who, these people sit around and talk about things like competitions and weights people throw around and the old-time weightlifters. And these people are like a cult, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. But I, at that point in time, felt very uncomfortable because I was stepping into an area which I knew absolutely nothing about. The next thing that Artie told me was, you're 182 pounds. And if you do compete in women's weightlifting, they're changing the weightlifting because women will be in the Olympics in 2000. And in order for you to be at any level of competition, I would suggest that you try to get into the lower weight class, which I felt was very nice and discreet way of telling me that I was too fat and I needed to lose some weight. So in February of '98, I took that little statement and came home and said, well, I guess I have to go on a diet. I'm going to drop down into the 165 class, the 75 kilo class, and I diligently started my cardiovascular training all over again. I started to watch my diet, which I had really pretty much let myself eat as much and as many times as I needed to because I really was on a mission to get as big and strong as I possibly could. So over the next 4 or 5 months, I worked and worked and worked and trained with Artie 3 to 4 times a week at the gym. And I very quickly learned that I was going through a lot of changes, not only physically, but also emotionally. And some of the frightening things that I experienced were the fact that when he finally said to me that I was going to be entered into my first Olympic lifting competition, I really didn't know what to do with that. And I have 16 years of experience under my belt. I've been to 4 or 5 world championships, and I've coached a Masters world team in Argentina. When he told me I was going to be in a small meet in Queens where there were going to be 20 people, I really, literally had diarrhea. I really was very nervous because I knew that I was going to go out there and not know what the hell I was doing. But being the kind man that he is and being the gentle coach that he is and being as knowledgeable as he is, he respected my strength and he respected the fact that I had to have some sort of a strong ego to come from here to here. And for those 6 months that we trained, I can't even tell you how many times I fell down. I can't tell you how many times I used the broomstick, and that was it. They created weights made out of thin pieces of wood, plywood, that basically maybe weighed 2.5 kilos each. So when you put a broomstick and 2.5 kilos over your head, it looks impressive, but basically it's about 7 pounds. So, you know, I mean, I was really making headway there. I was going from nothing to 7 pounds. But, you know, he said, you can do this, you know, you just have to get out on the platform, you have to learn the technique, you have to learn how to hold the bar over your head. Again, going through this whole big learning process. And stepping onto that platform for the first time was something that I felt as a competitor was like being reborn again. Because I had chosen to make a change professionally, personally, athletically, however you want to look at it. And I realized that I was making a choice. But I was making a choice that could have gone either way. It could have gone where I totally bombed out, or it could have gone that I made it through the competition and I did all right. So in May of '98, I went down to the Iron Island gym where they held the Empire State Game trials, and I went out for my first attempt and I missed it. And now you're talking about somebody who hasn't really missed an attempt unless it was a deadlift in a very long time. You know, when I first started powerlifting, I missed a lot of squats. You know, you talk about learning how to squat. I used to put a squat buddy between my knees, which was a little squeaky toy. And when I got down to where it squeaked, that's how I knew it was deep enough. Okay? But when I went out and missed my second attempt on the snatch, I knew that there was something wrong. And I went to the meet director and I told him he was misloading the bar. And because I was a nobody, he told me to go back into the warm-up room and shut up. So at that point, I called Kenny Lightsmith to the platform, and we went out. And yes, the bar was misloaded by 15 kilos, more than I had ever lifted in my life. So the fact that I had even gotten it over my head, and I figured I'd go out and do it again and just lift it, I got the lift on the third attempt. So, you know, I mean, I did have enough experience to know that the bar was misloaded. However, I didn't have enough experience to know what I was talking about as far as the Olympic lifts and the Olympic lifting competition arena. So with all these changes, I've been studying some Chinese medicine over the past year. I've been getting certified. I got certified in sports massage because I'm looking to make a career change in the next 5 years. And I've been reading a lot of stuff that has to do with Chinese medicine. And if anybody has looked into Chinese medicine or Oriental medicine, when you look into Chinese characters, many times they look at change, and change involves danger, and it also involves opportunity. So this has sort of opened up my eyes, and some of the dangers that I thought of when I was going out there was, you know, am I really going to be able to do this? You know, is this going to be a moot point? Why do I even want to qualify for the Empire State Games? I mean, unless I'm going to win, why should I even go? But for me, winning was not always a prime motivator for me. I worked hard all of my years that I competed in powerlifting, and I worked as hard as I possibly could to get to that championship level. And when I got to the level of being an elite lifter, I knew that nobody could stop me. And that's what kept me going. But then stepping down and going into the Olympic lifting arena, I felt that all of these negative thoughts kept running through my mind. I was too big. I wasn't flexible. I was slow. I was going to fail. I was going to bomb. And I knew that these weren't good things to be running through your head when you're about to step into a platform where you're going to be competing. One of the other things that some of my friends said, why would you even want to do this? You're going to embarrass yourself. You don't look like an Olympic lifter. You look like a power lifter, and that was true. I mean, I think a year ago today, or a year and 5 months ago today, I did. I was 182 pounds, and very big and square, and very strong. And now I'm 164 pounds, and a lot more flexible, and a lot faster than I think I've ever been in my life. But I wound up qualifying for the Empire State Games, and then I wound up going and winning the gold medal. And when I stood on that podium, I mean, the only thing that could run through my mind was, I did it, and then I cried. So it was another emotional step for me. It was something that competitively I always wanted to do, and it was the beginning of something new for me. Some of the opportunities that I've found through this weightlifting arena is, as a woman and as an athlete, I have been pretty much struggling all of my life with that. And for those of you who are involved with young women, young girls, or are women athletes, you understand what I'm talking about. Many times, women are not accepted in this society if you're big and strong, assertive, or outspoken. And I am all of those. However, I'm very well educated, and I speak very well. And many times when I speak to a group, I come across as being maybe a little bit too self-centered. However, this is what's gotten me through, and this is what's made me a champion. And the opportunity that I'm looking for at this point is to possibly have the opportunity to go to the Olympic trials next year. Women will be at the Olympics in 2000, there is no doubt. There will be 8 weight classes. There are a lot of women out there that are a hell of a lot better than I am. And at one of the Olympic meets this year, I ran into other powerlifters, other women powerlifters who are making the change because they are excited. Being involved in powerlifting for the past 16 years, we've been hearing that we're going to be in the Olympics, but we're not. Until powerlifting comes together as a community, I don't think we'll ever get to that Olympic stadium. But if it happens, I intend to be there. And that's one of the opportunities that I have in the back of my mind as something that I'm going to be there, whether it's on the Olympic arena or in the powerlifting arena. And I'm doing things outside, as you can see with my life, that are trying to prepare me for that. Last year I was picked up by a modeling and talent agency in Manhattan and went out to LA to audition for a week and had the opportunity to really see what show business is all about, to possibly prepare myself if there's ever a time that I want to do sports commentating, or if I want to get involved with writing for sports, or if I want to just make debuts. There are some people here from Long Island, and in the New York area, I'm sort of like a mini celebrity. People know me all over the place. People see me and want autographs. I'm on Channel 12. I'm in Newsday. I'm on, Powerlifting USA magazine for different reasons other than just winning championships. I want to be involved because I want to be involved on the corporate level. I want to be involved on the women's sports level. I want to get involved. Jamie and I were talking on the way down here this morning about getting involved with the WNBA and possibly working with some of those athletes. You saw that I did pro wrestling for a year, and Kim Hampton, who plays on Liberty now, was my wrestling partner. Okay? So there are people out there that I have met along the way, along this journey, that have contributed to all of the pieces of Linda Joe that you see standing here in front of you today. The other thing is that I like the opportunity to be a spokesperson, to be a mentor. I have 3 little nieces, and the youngest one is 7, the oldest one just turned 13, and she's been begging me since she was 5 to come to the gym. And now she is. I told her she could wait until she was old enough, and I felt she was ready to come. I want to be a role model for her. I want to be a role model for other athletes. And I want to use all the experiences that I've had through my competition years and through my learning how to weight train and learning how to do all those things to help other people have their journey. There are a lot of people in this room that have come and gone today that I've known for many years. And I've seen people move from point A to point B, where they started out where they weren't involved in all this weight training, and now they are, and that's their life. But that's a good thing. And if that's where you want to be, then you have to go for it. Last year, I realized that my ego was possibly going to take a big hit by stepping out of the powerlifting community. And not only was my ego going to take a hit, but also my social life my competition life because I know so many people all over the world that are involved with powerlifting. And last year I had the opportunity to be chosen as the USA World Masters Team coach and delegate, taking 25 athletes over to Argentina and coaching them in 2 different languages. I know a little bit of Spanish, not fluent, but I knew enough to get us through the world competition. And I have to tell you that stepping into that type of a competitive situation where I know how to coach people, but stepping into an international IPF competition like that, where we had just merged and just come under a new wing, was a very difficult process. And knowing that the organization had enough faith in me to bring our team over there and be the delegate to represent the United States was another piece that for myself was saying, okay, she can do this. She can represent us, and I don't doubt that she will do a good job. And we did. We really had a good time in Argentina, and we met people from 30 different countries and had the best time of our lives. We got to meet a lot of different people who now we write to each other from, all over the world. And this is what it's all about. This is what my journey has given me through powerlifting and also now through Olympic lifting. The other thing that I had to realize was that in powerlifting, for those of you who have seen me compete and have seen me lift through the years, I'm known as a technician. And this year, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but it'll come. He was at the meet, big, strong guy, male powerlifter, and he's seen me in the magazines, and he was on the plane ride with us going over. And after he watched us compete, he said, "My God," he says, "you're like a robot when you go out there." And even the judges said, "You're like technically perfect. There's nothing wrong with your lifts." And I told him I felt that making the change from powerlifting to Olympic lifting and stepping out for a little while, lifting with no equipment except for a belt when I needed it, really helped me to develop a strength level that I don't think I would have had if I had kept going on the pursuit that I was on. I really felt as though by stepping back and learning all these things and taking the time to stretch, to learn speed, agility, balance, to be massaged once a week, to have my chiropractor see me once or twice a month. These are all things that are incorporated into my life on a weekly basis. I don't just go into the gym and go home. I mean, my life revolves around my lifting career at this point in time and pretty much is another part-time job. I've chosen to do this. I've chosen to make this exception for myself, and I've chosen to take the time to not do all those other things that I might need to do right now so that I can pursue whatever it is I need to accomplish for the next year and a half. My body went through a lot of adjustments. I lost about 20 pounds, 21 pounds over the year's period of time. And now what I'm finding is that, after I've adjusted to all of my leverages, I've had to go through a whole new process of learning how to get that flow or that zone back for the Olympic lifting like I used to have with the powerlifting and when I go under a bar. I can still go under a heavy squat bar. I mean, this week I squatted 290 for 5 with just a belt. I lifted 330 for 10 reps and could have kept going, okay? So my strength level has not gone down. Everything, I think, has still remained the same. And I'm talking with no equipment. I'm not using anything except for a belt. And in the Olympic lifting arena, they only let you use these little, like, ace bandage things that you put on your knee, and probably it's just for decoration. I don't even know why I wear them. But, everybody else does it, so I might as well do it as an advantage. During the powerlifting days, you get sore. Hopefully you don't get injured, but you do get sore. You get a certain muscular soreness. But what I learned through the Olympic lifting is that my neurological system short circuits. And I went from training twice a week, heavy power, high intensity stuff. And now I was switched over to this Olympic lifting stuff where we lift Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and sometimes on Monday. And when I looked at them and said, we're going to lift 4 days a week, how do you do that? It is very difficult to go from one mode of lifting to the other. And what I'm finding is that I really have to be in tune to my neurological system because it's very easy to get hurt. And if you're tired and if you're not on, you really shouldn't step into the gym because you will get hurt. I mean, this is the kind of sport that I think, a lot of people fear it because people are throwing a lot of big weights over their head. But I think if you train smart, like we've talked about today, and if you do things the way that you're supposed to do them and listen to your body, you can train for a very long time and you can have success in whatever you do. But you have to understand where your limits are. The final thing that I learned was that I was going to have to, again, make a final commitment. As I learned when I did my years of bodybuilding, and then I went into powerlifting, I can't be good at both. That's what people keep telling me. You can't do both. You have to stick to one or the other. And that's why in '97 I took some time off, and when I went and did mostly the powerlifting on the side with Olympic lifting being coached by Artie, I realized that I was missing that hunger of the competition. I was missing, I don't know what I was missing. I was missing something, but I just wasn't getting the same fire out of the Olympic lifting stuff as I did out of the heavy lifts and powerlifting. But I realized now that eventually I'm going to have to make a choice. And I didn't expect this year, when I went back to powerlifting in Nebraska in February, I did not expect to win it all. And that is the God-honest truth. I went out there knowing that I had dropped 20 pounds and knowing that I was going into the 75 kilo class and knowing that it was one of the most difficult weight classes to compete in for women. So I figured I'd place in the top 3. And Alex Gallant was there, and he was one of the master lifters at the Worlds in Argentina with me, and he and I hit it off very well. So he was my numbers man at the Nationals. And if any of you read the meet report in Powerlifting USA, Andrea Saltwell and I have been back and forth for years. And it's a camaraderie. It's not an angry competition. It's something that we enjoy. That's what gives us the reason to come back year after year after year. Who's going to win it this year? Is it going to be Betsy or is it going to be Linda? Is it going to be Linda or is it going to be Betsy? Is it going to be Andrea? Who's going to make weight? Is Andrea going to make weight? Andrea comes in. She's always 10 pounds heavy the day before the competition. I don't know what she does the night before, but she always makes weight the next day. I don't want to know what she does the night before. I really don't. But in any event, she always winds up making weight. But that was the gist of her article this year, that she didn't win. She took second because she lost on body weight. And basically that's what happened. I knew that I could lift as much as she could lift, and I knew that I was the lighter lifter. So if I could keep up with her lift to lift, I could beat her. And when they came down to the deadlift, what people know now of Linda Jo is that, Kenny taught me a long time ago. He says, you'll never be a great squatter, you'll never be a great bencher, but I can teach you how to pull like you can never pull before. He says, and that will always win a competition for you. And when I finally started to realize that, this year was when I realized it the most, because they banked on the fact that Linda Jo was going to get tired after her second deadlift. And I love to deadlift. I could deadlift all day long. So we opened up with 375. We went up to 402. And she thought I wasn't going to have anything left after my 402, so she passed on her second attempt. She thought she was going to bump it to 420 and tie me, and I wasn't going to get my lift. She went out, got her lift. I went out, got my lift, and beat her, and still had more to pull. So, this was something that when I won the Open and the Masters division at the Powerlifting Championships this year, now I had to make a choice. I qualified for 2 World Championship teams, one in Denmark in May, and the one that I'll be attending in October in South Africa. So during that time, when I came back, Artie said, see, I told you weren't going to get weaker. You're only getting stronger. You're 20 pounds lighter. You've lost some pounds off your total, but that's to be expected. But you still won. I said, okay, now what's next? So we've been competing in Olympic lifting every 6 weeks or so. There's always a contest, either at the Horse Battalion or in Connecticut, and we go, and we use it as a workout, and I use it as an experience. And it brings me back to the days when Kenny Lysing used to drag me across the country every weekend. We'd get in the car at 4 in the morning and drive to Pennsylvania, or we'd drive to Connecticut, or we'd drive up to New York, just to get the meet experience. And that's what I'm doing all over again, getting the experience that I need. And we went to a couple of the meets, and I said to Artie, they're having a national Masters competition in Baton Rouge. Do you think that I would be ready for that? He said, yeah, you're ready. I said, I am? He said, yeah. I said, okay. He says, go. We'll get you an application and you go. I didn't realize that he meant you're going by yourself to this Olympic competition. Because Artie's the kind of guy that, I mean, he's got a lot of lifters that he trains. But he takes care of his lifters. And so what he did was he called Tommy Kono in Hawaii. Anybody know who Tommy Kono is? Okay. So he comes back to me the next weekend in the gym. He goes, I found you a coach. You don't have to worry. Send in your application to Baton Rouge. I said, well, who's going to be my coach? Who's handling me? He goes, Tommy Kono. I said, who's he? He goes, one of the greatest lifters of all time. And he brings out his book, and he turns, to Tommy Kono. So I'm in Baton Rouge by myself, Louisiana, and I'm warming up for my competition, and I'm stretching, and I'm getting ready, and I'm wondering where is this guy? He hasn't shown up. We're getting ready. We did the opening ceremonies. So all of a sudden, this small man comes across, and he reminds me of Mr. Miyagi. And he's like, Linda Joe. And I look up, and I said, are you Tommy Kono? He said, yes, I am. I said, nice to meet you. Thank you very much. And this man, that's all I can compare him to. And I call him Mr. Miyagi, because to me, that's who he is. He said to me, just relax. Just don't get nervous. Do you want? I mean, this is the way he spoke to me the whole time. And I was like, in a trance. And he's like, okay, now when you do your snatch, you stretch and snap. And every time he talked to me, it was like, okay, and I'd get under the bar thinking I was going to fall asleep, and the bar just like floated, and it just went. I was like, well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because it's working, But he was like a godsend when he came and showed up, and he got me through my snatches, which I got my first attempt, which was 52 kilos. I went out 50 kilos. I went out for the 52 and a half kilos, and I missed on a technicality, and then I came back and got it. And the clean and jerk, of course, because of deadlifting and benching, I'm a little more comfortable with that lift, and I wound up with a 70 clean and jerk that day. Not knowing that the other two people in my weight class, I wasn't paying attention. I mean, I figured I'd go and I'd take second or third place and just make a presence. And after I finished my last clean and jerk, he came up to me and he said, congratulations. And I said, for what? He says, you just won the national championships. And I went, what? He said, yeah, you just won. He said, not only that, but you set all the national records, too. So I said to him, wow, this is great. So then the chairperson comes over and says, we need to know if you're going to the World Championships there in Scotland in September this year. And I said, well, I'll get back to you. He goes, no, we need to know now. We need your deposit. We have to put the rooms down and order your uniform. You need to give us money now. Well, at this point, my head is spinning, because now all that's going through my head is Denmark, South Africa, Scotland. Denmark, which one am I going to choose? What